LEGO is back at it again with more Pokemon sets, and once again, a lot of fans are not happy. It feels like every wave is missing the mark somehow, and although we're finally getting some minifigures, they're locked behind a $130 and a $300 set. Let's break down the issues with all these sets, talk about what's actually good, and then go over some solutions. The first Pokemon wave was honestly kind of a disaster. There were only 3 sets, along with a couple small limited run sets. They were giant brick-built Pokemon that felt overpriced and underwhelming, plus there was quite a few design issues. The biggest problem though was that these were clearly adult-focused sets, with the cheapest costing $60 and the most expensive coming in at $650. On top of that, none of them included any minifigures or molded Pokemon, and it ended up being one of the most poorly received LEGO launches in quite a while. A lot of people gave LEGO the benefit of the doubt because we knew this is only the first wave, so the expectation was that once the kid-focused playsets arrived, we'd finally get minifigures, molded Pokemon, and some proper playscale builds. Well, fast forward to a month ago when those playsets were revealed, and they're all Smart Play integrated. A lot of Pokemon designs look pretty rough, and somehow there still weren't any minifigures. Now we finally have some more revealed that include both molded Pokemon and minifigures, which is a huge step in the right direction. The problem is that they're locked behind some of the most expensive sets in the entire theme. The set that I and many others have the biggest problem with is the iconic Trainer Moments Pokeball. Some people might really like the design, but at the end of the day, it's still a $300 set. I think the biggest selling point is obviously the exclusive minifigures and molded Pokemon, and honestly it feels like LEGO knows they can get away with a pretty mediocre set because they're some of the only minifigures in the entire line. It'd be one thing if you were getting, say, 10 minifigures in this set, but only 3 feels pretty underwhelming for the price. Red looks great, although the printed backpack instead of a molded one just boggles my mind a bit. Recently, LEGO has been incredibly stingy when it comes to developing new molds, and it's crazy to me that a figure exclusive to a $300 flagship set couldn't get one. The printed backpack just looks so much worse. The Picnicker looks great though, and I'm a big fan of them reusing Dustin's hair and hat piece from Stranger Things. This is a perfect example of when you don't need a new mold because one already exists that fits the character really well. Finally, there's Professor Oak, and honestly, I don't have any complaints about him. He's fantastic and probably the strongest minifigure of the set. The minifigure scale molded Pokemon also look great, and my only real complaint is that we don't get more of them. There's literally a display showing all 3 Kanto starters sitting in Pokeballs, so why couldn't we have gotten those as molded Pokemon as well? Despite loving the minifigure and Pokemon lineup, it honestly just leaves me wanting more for that $300 price tag. At the very least, I'd love to see these figures eventually show up in smaller sets or even polybags, so they aren't completely locked behind one incredibly expensive set, especially Red and Professor Oak, as they're some of the most iconic characters. Now moving on to the build itself, it's fine. The exterior looks good, and most of the interior is well done too. The little Professor Oak lab is honestly kind of perfect, but it also shows how much potential LEGO left on the table. Goldfire made a video about this set, and he suggested that instead of these giant display gimmicks, LEGO should make full modular style Pokemon buildings for their adult flagship sets. Imagine a fully detailed Pokemon Center, gym, or Professor Oak's lab. If LEGO is already asking collectors to spend that kind of money, why not go all out on something fans have wanted for years? The Oak's lab diorama is probably my favorite part of the entire set, but it's also frustrating because it makes me wish it was expanded into its own standalone build instead of being crammed inside a giant Pokeball. The other scene inside the Pokeball is this little Pokemon battle, and honestly, imagine if that by itself was just a $20 set. Fans of all ages would have loved it. Instead, LEGO seems to be banking on the fact that people desperately want Pokemon minifigures, so rather than making them accessible in smaller sets, they're locking them behind a $300 paywall. I don't know if that's intentionally their strategy or not, but that's definitely how it comes across to me. Personally, I just want these characters to be accessible to more fans instead of feeling like premium collector's items, as it's not only adults who want Pokemon minifigures, kids want them too. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think these minifigures should stay exclusive, or would you also rather see them show up in smaller, more affordable sets? Anyways, next let's talk about the Rayquaza set. It's $130 and only includes 1 minifigure. On top of that, despite the set being almost 1,100 pieces, it feels a bit small for the price tag. Now this is just a common issue with modern licensed LEGO in general, but let's be real. You've got a display stand that's probably close to half the piece count, a Pokemon that's maybe 600 pieces at most, and 1 minifigure for $130. Intuitively, it just doesn't feel like a great value, even though I do think the set looks really nice. Zinnia looks great though. I'm a big fan of the cape, and her printing is really detailed and accurate. My one issue is the hair. The generic bob cut just doesn't look quite right. Karai from the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sets had a hairpiece that would have worked so much better here, although I'm pretty sure LEGO destroys molds after a number of years, so that could be why they didn't use it. Still, for a $130 set with only one minifigure, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect a brand new mold for an important character. I don't know if that was a designer decision where they felt this hairpiece was close enough, or if it was simply a design restriction by the higher-ups, but either way, it's a little disappointing. Other than that though, she looks fantastic. Rayquaza also looks super cool, and I'm a big fan of how they designed and shaped the head. Honestly, I think they nailed the overall proportions. The display stand is definitely a little big, but it also looks good, so I'm not going to blame the price entirely on that design choice. Do I think $100 to $110 would have been a fairer price? Yeah, probably, but unlike some of the other adult-focused Pokemon sets, this actually feels like a display set done right. It's a Pokemon people want, the model looks fantastic, and the minifigure is genuinely well done. I absolutely love the minifigure scale Pokemon, and this is a step in the right direction for getting more. Now onto a set that frankly looks abysmal, it's the upscaled red minifigure. I genuinely don't know anyone who is asking for or expecting something like this. It just feels like such a strange choice. I understand the appeal of upscaled, more classic LEGO minifigures because it's a fun twist on an iconic LEGO character that people already know and love. But Red isn't really a LEGO icon. He's a Pokemon character that we've barely even gotten as a normal minifigure yet. I just don't see this being a set that appeals to many people, even diehard Pokemon fans. The shaping of the face also looks a bit off to me, especially around the forehead, and to be completely honest, I don't think the Pokeball looks very good either. This just ends up being a really odd looking display piece. What really confuses me though is that they didn't even include a standard red minifigure. If this set at least came with one, there'd be a reason for collectors to pick it up without spending $300 on the Pokeball. Instead, if you want the regular red figure, you're still forced into buying the most expensive set, and at $80, this is probably my least favorite Pokemon set they've revealed so far. I just don't think it's going to sell particularly well, especially since it doesn't even scale with any of the already existing Pokemon. Now maybe I'll be completely wrong and this thing will end up flying off shelves, but I honestly just don't see the audience for it. On the contrary, Munchlax has a really good design, and I think this is another example of a display set done right. I'm definitely more of a fan of minifigure scale stuff, but I can absolutely see the appeal of this set. They nailed the shape and proportions of Munchlax, and I'm honestly pleasantly surprised with how good it turned out. One thing that could really elevate these Pokemon display sets would be the inclusion of a minifigure scale molded Pokemon alongside the build. It's obviously not a deal breaker without it, but it'd be a really nice bonus. Plus, if LEGO starts making more minifigure scale sets in the future, they could easily justify creating all these new molds by reusing them across multiple sets. Back to the set itself though, I love the tree stump display. It's a simple build, but it gives Munchlax a lot of personality. Overall, I think this is a really solid set. It's gonna retail for $70, and all things considered, I actually think it's a pretty fair value. Finally, we have Arcanine, and I think this set looks great. It's one of the bigger Pokemon, and because of that, the designers were able to add a ton of shaping and detail throughout the build. The head looks great, the proportions feel right, and overall, it's just a really clean looking model. The build itself comes in at nearly 1,200 pieces, so I'm definitely glad they didn't add some oversized display stand that would have driven the price up even more. At $110, it's certainly not cheap, but considering the piece count, the Pokemon licensing fees, and how good the final model looks, I actually think the pricing is pretty fair. Overall, this wave is definitely a mixed bag. Munchlax, Rayquaza, and Arcanine are really solid sets, and after months of waiting, we finally are getting molded Pokemon and proper minifigures. That's exactly what fans have been asking for. The problem is where LEGO decided to put them. Right now, most of the minifigures are locked behind a $300 Pokeball, and even the cheaper premium set still costs $130. I feel like LEGO is treating these characters as premium collector items instead of making them accessible for everyone. That's what worries me the most about the future of this theme. The actual builds are generally getting better, but LEGO doesn't seem to understand what people are most excited about. Fans don't just want big display models. They want affordable sets with trainers, molded Pokemon, gyms, Pokemon centers, and all the iconic locations from the games. Personally, I think LEGO is leaving a ton of money on the table. I honestly believe those kinds of sets would absolutely fly off shelves. The good news is that I don't think we're that far away. The molds are finally here, the minifigures are finally here, and the designers clearly know how to make them look good. Now it's just a matter of putting those pieces together in sets that more fans can actually afford. I'm really hoping LEGO listens to the feedback because I think this theme has the potential to become one of their biggest and most beloved licensed themes. They're so close, they just need to take that last step. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Which of these sets are you actually planning on picking up, and what Pokemon set do you want to see LEGO make next? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps support the channel and lets me make multiple videos a week. As always, thank you for watching.